Hello everyone, this is Michael. Today we're going to look at and rank every single album by vocal legend Ronnie James Dio. Dio, of course, is considered one of, if not the greatest heavy metal vocalist of all time. His career spanned 6 decades, and he was not only the lead singer, frontman, lyricist, and major creative force of numerous hard and rock and heavy metal acts, such as Rainbow, Black Sabbath, and of course his own band, Dio. We're going to break up our analysis into 3 parts. We start today with part 1 during Dio's pre-Rainbow days, when he was a member of numerous music acts, most notably the rock band Elf. Part 2, we'll look at the peak years of Dio's career when he was a member of Rainbow, Black Sabbath, and he released his first couple of solo albums in the early to mid 80s. And then part 3, we'll look at the final 25 years or so of Dio's career, when he released numerous solo albums and also contributed to numerous other entertainment efforts such as movies and things like that. Dio was born Ronnie Padova in upstate New York all the way back in 1942. He changed his name to Ronnie James Dio. He was inspired by a local gangster named Johnny Dio. He just thought it was a cool name. He is known for his extremely powerful vocals, his magnetic stage presence, and his fantasy-themed Dungeons and Dragons lyrics. Here's a fun fact. Dio credits 5 years of daily trumpet training in his youth for giving him the great breath control that enables him to deliver those powerful vocals. Dio's first band goes all the way back to 1958, which, when I was doing my research for this project, shocked me that he was making music all the way back in the 50s. He was a member of a band called the Vegas Kings at that time, and they played music of they played music that was of that era, doo-wop and that type of things. He and his band would play in upstate New York throughout the 60s. They would change names numerous times. They were known as Ronnie Dio and the Prophets primarily. However, they released a number of singles, not only in the 60s, but even a couple going all the way back to the 50s, but none enjoyed any real sort of commercial success. Another name that they used was Ronnie and the Red Caps, but mostly these singles were released under the name Ronnie Dio and the Prophets. Now, like I say, these singles have nothing in common with the hard rock and heavy metal that Dio would become known for. These are music very much of the time, combining doo-wop, soft balladeering, and surf rock instrumentals. Think bands like The Ventures. By the late 60s, the band had changed names yet again, this time to the Electric Elves, and then just Elves, and then finally Elf. And they would play throughout the upstate New York area. Unfortunately, when the band was returning from a gig one night, their van was hit head-on by a drunk driver, and the guitarist in the band, whose name was Nick Pantas, died as a result of the car accident. Ronnie James Dio himself was severely injured. He suffered a severe head injury. He was basically scalped, and the pictures that you can find on the internet are pretty damn scary. And let's think about the situation at this time. At this point, Dio is already in his late 20s, and he's been doing the music thing for 10 years already at this point. And now he is laying in a hospital bed. His guitarist has died, and he has suffered a severe injury. And if ever there was a time where somebody might want to question what it is they're doing for a profession, this would be it. And yet Dio insisted on moving forward, keeping the band together, and to continue to make music. And I think that this rock solid faith in himself and his real passion to make music is something that we'll see carried Dio throughout his career. Now, I watched a lot of documentaries and read some various things preparing for this analysis, and they all claimed that after that accident that Dio and the band were insistent on moving towards a hard, heavy rock approach. Something more like Cream and the heavy blues that was popular in the late 60s. And according to the documentaries, Elf decided that was the direction they were going to go, and that's the direction they pursued. And their first real big break came as a result of getting the attention of Ian Pace and Glenn Hughes, who were the drummer and bass player of the band Deep Purple, and famous music whiz Clive Davis, who's he's like one of those record company guru guys that would sign bands. So they caught their attention and got what had to be a nerve-wracking audition where they performed just for those three people. But the audition went well, and Ian Pace and Glenn Hughes decided that they would produce an album by Elf. And so they produced the very first album that Ronnie James Dio ever played on, which is called simply Elf. And while, like I say, the documentaries claim that the band embraced a hard, heavy rock approach, you're not going to find that on any of the songs on this album, released in 1972. Instead, you're going to find a lot of what I would consider boogie rock, and honestly, the most prominent instrument on the album is what I would call ragtime piano. The piano is very prominent throughout most of the songs, and like I say, it has more of a ragtime feel than like a rock and roll piano sound. It's kind of bewildering to me because there are bootlegs available from this era that have live versions of Elf playing, and there you can find hard rock songs. They do covers of things like War Pigs, but you don't hear any of that on this album. This album is what I would call generic 70s boogie rock, and while Dio's voice is adequate, there's nothing about this album that if you listen to it said, wow, that singer right there, this guy's going to be one of the greatest and most respected heavy metal singers or any kind of singer of all time. You just don't hear, he's like I say, he's competent, but you don't hear any of the confident, swaggering vocals that Dio would become known for. You don't have any heavy guitars. There's not a heavy drum sound. The music isn't horrible. It's just unremarkable. I feel like if you were to type into ChatGPT or something like that today, generic 70s boogie rock, that what it would produce would sound a lot like this first effort from Elf. There's no shame in that. You know, this is their first effort, and making competent, if not compelling music, like I say, is nothing to be ashamed of. I think the two most notable songs on this debut album from Elf is Nevermore and Dixie Lee Junction. Nevermore is the only song on the album that really has a hard rock sound. The guitars and drums are more prominent. I'm looking at my notes here. And it's got this kind of cool groove to it, so that's why I give it an 80. It's a generous score. And then Dixie Lee Junction is actually a fairly ambitious song that it's 7 minutes long, and the opening half of this song is kind of interesting. It's got this kind of mellow guitar, piano, delicate Dio vocal thing going, and halfway through it's got a pretty good thing going, and I'm thinking this might be interesting, and then it just switches to the same generic boogie rock that we heard throughout the rest of the album, and so it kind of loses its energy after that. When we combine all this together, we get a score of 62. This is a generous score because, like I say, most of those songs individually, if you listen to one at a time, they're fine. They're all like 3 or 4 minutes long, and they're fine. But to listen to the entire album from beginning to end, I think would be a bit of a slog. I mean, it's just, I wouldn't want to listen to that. I'm not that familiar with these albums. I listened to them and researched them for this video. I wouldn't want to listen to any of them all the way through. What the band did have going for them at this point was they were like the permanent opening band for Deep Purple. This is the early to mid 70s, and Deep Purple were at their height of powers. They were touring all over the world, Asia, Europe, North America, and they were selling out arenas. And so Elf, as the preferred opening band for Deep Purple, was getting an opportunity to play in front of 10, 15, 20,000 people every single night. And that, of course, was a great opportunity. All right. After that, the band came back 2 years later and released what is called Carolina County Ball. And you can see I like this album even a little bit less than the debut album. And like the first album, this is mostly instantly forgettable boogie rock. The band has not expanded their sound in any way. It sounds almost identical to the first album. If you were to mix the songs together and tell me they were all recorded at the same time, I'd believe you. Again, we have no hint of the hard rock music that, like I say, the documentaries claim that Elf embraced. It's like I say, it's a little bit baffling to me because there are these bootleg live video or audios that you hear the band playing hard rock, but on the albums there's no indication of that. Again, we have this ragtime piano sound as kind of the predominant instrument that's being played. If you're looking for variety, you get slow tempo boogie, mid tempo boogie, and fast tempo boogie. That's where the variety comes. There are a couple instances here and there where they do venture into hard rock, but they just don't seem willing to commit to it. And the one thing I would mention is the finale, the final song, Blanche, is just a piano and some delicate Dio vocals, and it does sound a bit different, but the song never really develops, and it is really repetitive. And so for that reason, I don't like it. And when we add it all up, we have a score of 56. So they've now released 2 albums, neither of which have been all that compelling. And so the band is not really going anywhere other than, like I say, the preferred opener for Deep Purple. And then a year later, they released their 3rd album titled Trying to Burn the Sun. And again, nothing too notable here. This is in 1975. I will note, look at the album cover, and that looks like Ronnie James Dio at his peak. So the band seemed to understand where the talent was in the band, and you can see there, it looks like him, classic Ronnie James Dio frontman on stage. So I'm guessing that live, they must have presented a much different experience than what we're getting on these studio albums, because Trying to Burn the Sun, again, is... I'll say this, the sound is a little more ambitious. They've got the use of backing female vocals. You've got some strings and some pop music meanderings here and there, especially on the song Wonder World. But overall, it's still pretty much a generic boogie rock album from the 70s that rarely rises above mediocrity. And so Elf is not... There's a reason most people don't know that Ronnie James Dio was a member of Elf, and that Elf was part, because their studio output, which consists of the 3 albums we looked at, there's nothing notable or remarkable about any of the songs on any of the 3 albums. And when you put them all together, they're really pretty unremarkable. So at this point, Elf's biggest claim to fame is that they are the opening act of Deep Purple when Deep Purple is touring. Now, speaking of Deep Purple, this is 1975, this album was released, and they are falling apart at this point. Lead vocalist Ian Gillan and the bass player Glenn Hughes had left the band previously, and guitarist Ritchie Blackmore, world renowned for his neoclassical guitar efforts, was unhappy with the kind of funk rock approach that the band had adopted with the new singer and new bass player, David Coverdale, and I'm forgetting the other guy's name, the bass player. It's great bass player, great vocalist, but I can't. Anyway, so Blackmore's unhappy with Dio's funk rock efforts and wants to release a solo album. And since he's been touring with Elf, he's been watching Ronnie James Dio perform on stage every night, and he asks Dio to provide the vocals for his solo album effort. And in fact, he ends up taking the entire Elf band, with the exception of the lead guitarist, because Blackmore's already a lead guitarist. He takes the entire Elf band and decides to make a solo album with them. And that is when essentially the big opportunity, the big break for Dio realized that Dio had been working towards this entire career. Remember, he started in 1958. It's 1975 now. He's already been playing music for 17 years. He's already 33 years old. He's not in terms of rock music, especially in the 70s, 33 was old. So this was, in many ways, the big break that Dio had been working towards his entire career, was this opportunity to join a major rock band, in this case, a major rock guitarist, Ritchie Blackmore. And we'll look at that on our next part of this series, looking at the history of Ronnie James Dio, part 2. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you join me for part 2, which will come out soon. Appreciate you spending time with me today, and of course hit the like button and subscribe if you like my videos.